Immigrants are taught to laugh at Black Americans. Again, immigrants are taught to laugh at Black Americans.
Oh, so fabulous. Hi guys, welcome back to the channel once again. It's your girl Dumebi Leah. If this is your first time coming across my channel, you're welcome. I do hope you decide to subscribe, and if you are a returning subscriber, you guys know that I love you. It's so good to have you here. Welcome back. So my usual disclaimer, please, this video is strictly for educational purposes. Do not go searching out the people that I talk about in this video. Don't send them any form of hate comments, threats, or violence. This channel does not support any of that. So there was this video that I came across made by this brother where he was addressing African Americans, and I went to his page after watching that video and I realized he makes a lot of videos like that. He makes videos that triggers people in the Black community and he always gets a lot of responses. Anyway, I picked out this very video and that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let me just go right ahead and play his video.
I was thinking something today, and I bet a lot of immigrants laugh at a lot of Black Americans. So imagine this. Imagine you live in India, right? You move your family. It's you, your wife, and you've got 2 kids. You move your family over here and you have nothing once you get here. Or let's say you've got $3,000 to your family's name by the time you get here. By the way, you don't speak English very well at all. Very broken English. You can barely even understand it. Yet you apply for 200-300 jobs, find yourself a job, you start making money. From there, you're working your butt off and you're saving every penny while also helping take care of your family. Your wife is working as well. You both are taking care of the children, obviously. You work your butt off for 10 years, save up enough money, right? Then you start your own business. From this point, as your business started, it struggled for the first year or two, but you had a good savings and now your business is starting to become profitable. You're starting to make money. Then you kick it into overdrive, you push the business even harder, and now you're making even more money. Now it's about time for your kids to go to college, so you've been saving up for their college fund, and now you look to start sending them to school. Your kids then go to school, they become doctors or lawyers or surgeons. They graduate 2 years after college, after they're done with their schooling, are now making 6 figures a year regularly. You then see people that were born here with every opportunity that you dreamed about having and moved your family across the world from, and they're busy blaming the fact that they're not successful on the things that happened 200-300 years ago to their grandparents, their great-great-great-grandparents, right? I don't understand how immigrants don't look at that and they're not like, oh my God.
So when I saw that video, I was like, what was the point of this video? Why would you make a video saying something like this? And I got 2 answers. Number 1, he's purposely trying to shame the Black community, trying to shame Black people, make them feel like they are not succeeding and it's their fault. And the second reason is he's trying to create enmity between Black people and immigrants. Like, you can't tell me nothing. Anyway, before I go into what I think, let's just play some of the stitches and responses people made to him.
Immigrants laugh at a lot of Black Americans.
Any immigrant who laughs at Black people for not making it is brainwashed by white supremacy. To begin with, the ancestors of African Americans didn't migrate here, they were enslaved and brought here. Since 1619, laws have existed to keep Black people in a certain level of society. However, for immigrants, over time, we got the ability to come here to work and bring our families. Very different paths. And again, any immigrant doesn't see that is brainwashed by white supremacy. Also, I would like to add that you mentioned Indian families. Again, we're all somewhere because of history. Indians have been able to rise so much because they've been allowed to come to this country and work longer than any other immigrant group. And you look at immigrants from like Haiti, Latin America, African countries haven't had that straight path to come here. And let's not forget, once we get here, it's not all roses for us. We have to deal with xenophobia and racism as well. So you see how white supremacy pins us against each other? So we both work hard, but we need to work harder to stop these white people from doing this to us.
Something today, and I bet a lot of immigrants laugh at a lot of Black Americans.
Some of y'all have a sick obsession with trying to call Black Americans lazy, and it's just weird to me. Number 1 was you thinking something today. Nobody asked you to do that. Mistake number 2 was trying to compare Black Americans to Black immigrants. Because for what? I love how y'all try to equate being born in America to access to privilege and power, when we all know that there are systems of oppression that constantly work against Black Americans day in and day out. And then y'all continue to try to perpetuate this narrative that slavery was the only system of oppression, which by the way happened 400 years ago, which lets you know that the American school system is failing black people. But y'all try to perpetuate this narrative that slavery was the only thing that was brought against black people throughout our entire history in America that does not allow us to progress. And outside of the fact that that narrative was completely anti-black, it was also absolutely divisive in a way to try to separate black Americans from immigrant black folks in America. So this American dream narrative that folks from outside of America come to America believing is actually just not true. And the experience of black Americans cannot be compared to the experience of immigrant black people in America. And that's just the end of it. Now, I'm sure that you already knew all this, but it doesn't matter because your goal was to be divisive and to make black Americans look bad. Yeah, no.
Immigrants laugh at a lot of black Americans.
Well, as an immigrant, let me tell you that you would lose that bet. Quit bringing us immigrants into your bullshit. The other day, when the cop stopped me for walking my dog in my own neighborhood, do you think he gave a shit what country I was from? He was the best man for a buddy who moved to Podunk, Missouri so that his wife could be closer to her family. Despite the fact that he is the kindest, most gentle person I have ever met in my life. At 6'2", 260, do you think anybody in that town gave a shit that he was from Kenya and spoke Swahili? When I'm applying for loans, when I'm interviewing for a job, when I'm walking through a store, nobody gives a shit that I have a green card and can speak French Creole. Black is black. So no, the vast majority of us immigrants do not see ourselves as higher than African Americans because day in and day out, we are experiencing the same shit. A small minority of immigrants that would tell you otherwise are akin to white women that uphold the patriarchy and conservative LGBTQ people. That is to say, they don't know poop from applesauce, and if they had a quarter more wit, they would be half-wits. So can you and the rest of the Coon Brigade leave us out of your shit? Check with the Ukrainians or the Cubans. They might be interested. The rest of us are not.
Today, and I bet a lot of immigrants laugh at a lot of black Americans.
So I just saw this. I think his content is great. I like his messaging. I'm Indian. I've talked about race and income and culture. However, I just don't think it's as binary as how he made it seem in the video. We all know immigrants hustle and work hard. Indian Americans are the highest earning ethnic group of the country. I think there are other factors that have contributed to it, and let me share some. I'll speak from the Indian perspective because that's what I know best. Indians have a massive support system when they come to the US. My parents, when they came 30-ish years ago, had a network of family, cousins, extended family that helped them get on their feet. Similarly, my mom's sister came from India to the US a few years ago. Her and her family stayed with us for a few years until they got on their feet and got their first apartment, and then they bought a house. 2, Indians and immigrants have a hustle mentality that is unrivaled. They're coming from a place of economic hardship, political instability, and in some cases even war-torn countries. Life is relative, and your internal motivation and ambition is determined based on what you've experienced. And people that come from those types of places have an ambition that is better and superior than anybody else's. Of course, people from all walks of life can have ambition, whether you're from the US or another developed economy. But on average, if you look at a distribution of people, I would assume that immigrants on average would have more hustle and grit than people that are not from those areas. 3, I think there are invisible, systemic, discriminatory practices that negatively influence some groups more than others. And I think lack of access to credit, financing, the practice of redlining has negatively influenced black Americans' ability to move upwards socioeconomically. Case in point, look at this appraisal. A black family was underappraised by hundreds of thousands of dollars, and when a white family was put in place, it was appraised at $750. This is modern day, and you're still seeing it play out today. I worked in mortgage. We saw this. It was pervasive. And imagine what it was like over the last few decades in the 1900s. It was bad. And when you have decades of a certain practice, it limits economic mobility for a particular group of people. So I don't think you can just say immigrants are successful because of these things. They didn't face some of the prejudices that other ethnic groups have faced. There are thousands of variables that influence a group's success, and I've only given 3. But I want to make the point that it's not as black and white as we make it out to seem.
The fact that they're not successful.
An interesting conversation. So I thought I'd join in as someone who has one African American parent and one Latino immigrant parent. Something that I talk with my grandma and my dad a lot about, so I understand their side of the immigrant perspective. Now I can say this, their opinions do not speak for every single immigrant, but I also know a lot of other immigrants who agree with this opinion. With what's crazy to me is how you don't understand, out of all the people in the world who would understand being in a country that makes it hard for you to be successful, it would be immigrants. The reasons that people immigrate from their country to America is because there's something going on in their country that is stopping them from being successful. And a lot of times it's systemic, whether that's oppression or lack of food or inflation or violence. So for you to sit here and say, oh, I bet immigrants think, wow, black people are so lazy, kind of disregards the entire experience before immigrating to the United States.
Immigrants laugh at a lot of black Americans.
A few months ago on this app, I watched a video and the creator made this statement. She said, the African immigrant to white supremacist pipeline is real. And when she said it, I said, oh my God, how dare you? I thought, how dare you suggest that African immigrants hold white supremacist ideologies? But then I just paused, I watched the rest of her video, and I thought for a minute. I thought about some of the narratives that I, as an African immigrant, hear in our community. I thought about some of the anti-black rhetoric that is so common in our community, and I had to admit that she was correct. And if you look in the comments of that video, the proof is there also. Many African immigrants think that they are better than black Americans. And we come from our home countries already with this false narrative, with this negative stereotype that black Americans as a group are lazy, they are on government handouts, they're not taking advantage of the opportunities that America has. We come with these narratives and we come here and we don't bother to challenge them, because if you just sit for a minute and think about some of these comparisons that are being made, you'll see that they are stupid, right? They don't make sense. They are not equal comparisons. We don't bother to learn the history of systemic racism in this country. We dig in our heels instead and try to prove that, you know, we're the good black people. Oh, look at us. We're so educated. We have all these good jobs. And it's frankly embarrassing. If you go to the comments of that video, you will see immigrants from all, let's call it races, right? People of color, basically affirming what this creator is saying, affirming this anti-black message. And African immigrants are also in there doing the same thing. And it's very ironic because all of us know that in this so-called people of color thing, every other community has very strong anti-black rhetoric. They have very anti-black sentiment. And you, a black African immigrant, you are in there kicking with these people who probably look down on you with the same racism and anti-blackness that they hold towards black Americans. Are you not embarrassed? Are you not embarrassed?
Because he is actually the textbook example of how you can be black and still be anti-black.
If by anti-black you mean I want us to die less of heart disease, I want us to stop killing each other at the rates that we...
Hey, good morning, Tom. First off, that's not what you said. What you said was this.
You know, I was thinking something today, and I bet a lot of immigrants laugh at a lot of black Americans.
And you didn't just stop there. You followed it up with this.
Family across the world from, and they're busy blaming the fact that they're not successful on the things that happened 200-300 years ago to their grandparents, their great-great-great-grandparents, right? I don't understand how immigrants don't look at that and they're not like, oh.
The question now becomes, what is there to laugh at? What is funny? Because last I checked, black unemployment is less than 5%. So if more than 95% of a certain demographic is working, what is there to laugh at?
Free ourselves. The North did, which was white men fighting.
Are you talking about the same North that compromised in 1877, effectively ending Reconstruction as we know it? Are you talking about the same North that segregated their cities just like the South? Are you talking about the same North that redlined all of their cities to make it harder for black people to get resources, to go to better schools, to get jobs? But let's talk about this 200-300 years ago thing. America is 266 years old. From 1776 to 1965, 189 years had passed, or 65% of America's history. During that 189 years, black people did not have any rights. So for 2/3 of our existence in this country, we effectively had zero rights. Now, just a few years after the Voting Rights Act was passed, my father was born. Do you seriously think that the things that happened around the time my father was born aren't going to impact us today? Let me ask that another way. Do you really think that the people who were having babies around that time were not teaching that same racist rhetoric to their kids just like their grandparents and parents taught to them? But let's talk about post-1965. Post-1965, we still have redlining, war on drugs, mass incarceration, and a host of other societal barriers that the United States government placed in front of black people. Now, if you cannot understand those things, that is not an indictment on me. That means that you are maladapted to critical thinking. So I'm going to ask you this one more time. What is there to laugh at? And on a side note, yesterday I had asked in my caption, where's Dr. Umar when you need him? And I found him. Here's what he has to say.
It only takes a little bit of white brainwash to activate the coon chip in the average Negro.
Have a blessed day, Tom.
A lot of immigrants laugh at a lot of black Americans.
I feel like that video is very interesting in the sense that, yes, he's right. A lot of immigrants do think that way, but I think it's mostly the older generation immigrants and also the immigrants that just don't mix and like are not in the spaces of African Americans at all. I feel like just in general, everybody tends to talk about another culture or ethnicity or group of people without even being in their shoes. So it's very interesting. This might even sound hypocritical of me because I made a video a couple years ago speaking about how Africans are, because this man made this stupid comment and I said, well, Africans are like this. I don't know about y'all, but I lived here for more years now and I'm understanding some more things. I think we really need to grasp and really understand the ideology behind a system. Do y'all understand that when white people brought Africans to this country, they implemented a very smart but evil system, or evil but smart system? And y'all just thought when slavery ended that all just went in the gutter? Like, no. Systemic racism bleeds through the veins of America till this day, and I believe will probably do so for a very long time. So as an immigrant, it's a completely different story to work hard to come to a country and then wanting to work hard. But as somebody who's been a victim of that system for a very long time, in that implemented and integrated in that system, it's very hard to just change. And this is why I'm not going to go deep into it because I really could go down a whole rabbit hole, but I feel like it's really important to travel. It's really important to know where you come from, to know who you are. And for Africans, I think it's really important to just get to know, you know, how greener or not is the other side of the grass, you know? Anyways, the world sucks. America sucks. White people let me just not say that on TikTok.
Immigrants laugh at a lot of black Americans.
Certified Mexican immigrant here who's protected under DACA. And just like my buddy Che said, that is brainwashed white supremacy mentality. And what you have just brought up is the exact type of thinking that continues to separate a lot of minority communities. When Mexicans were crossing the border, they didn't really think about, you know, black Americans not being able to make it, this, that, the other. They came over here, did the jobs that no Americans would do for a low pay, which is prohibited against the law. But, you know, they're not educated. They worked their butts off. People saw how they worked. They assisted them. They helped them. And then they got educated along the way. And every generation is supposed to get better. So each generation gets smarter. I should have made this very clear in my first video, but immigrants are taught to laugh at black Americans. When you're around a group setting of Republicans that they're your boss, they're the ones that are leading the job sectors of construction, agriculture, concrete, any other miscellaneous jobs that Americans, white or black, that don't want to do those jobs are the ones in power. And when they see an individual, an immigrant that is actually working to benefit them, they end up saying, oh, they're actually pulling themselves up by the bootstrap. I'm going to help them out. I'm going to help them do this, that, the other. And then when these immigrants end up getting their paperwork done, visas, whatnot, they end up having that mindset exactly like their boss. They're like, oh yeah, no, immigrants, this, that, the other, because they were taught, they were influenced by their surroundings. So like to have that mindset and say, immigrants laugh at black Americans, it's very uneducational. We come over here without any education. We come over here and work our butts off with little to no resources. We come here with nothing. And for someone like you to spew this topic and that rhetoric doesn't really make any sense, especially when you're confronted by a lot of educated immigrants protected under DACA and telling you that this is white supremacist brainwash mentality that you're just spreading. If you want to put your community down, you can do that. You can do it however you want. We're all entitled to our opinions, but don't bring the immigrants into this. Don't say that immigrants laugh at black people. No. Immigrants are taught to laugh at black people.
So you can see a lot of immigrants jumped on this one, and they are trying to explain to him how they're not really out here trying to laugh at African Americans. They just come with hustle on their mind to make it, right? And that makes sense. I actually went to the comment section of the brother's video, the original video, and I saw a lot of people in the comments, some of them agreeing with him, immigrants of course, then some of them disagreeing with him, talking about the history and systemic racism and all of that black people had to deal with that doesn't necessarily affect the immigrants when they come. I'm going to just be putting some of them on the screen so that you can check out some of the comments that people left on his video. But now to talk about what I think. Being an African, I know that a lot of Africans go over to America and a lot of them make it. But we also cannot ignore the fact that it is definitely not every immigrant that goes into America that makes it. So that is one thing this guy did not point out in his video. You cannot make it look like everybody comes to America and succeeds. So why are black people not succeeding? It cannot be every immigrant that comes to America that succeeds. That's the first point. The second point being that anybody who is brave enough to leave their country, uproot their life and whatever it is they've built in their country, come to another country, knowing that you're basically going to be starting all over. You might even have to learn a new language, try to get another training or education or whatever, or do some kind of jobs that normally might be beneath you if you were back in your country. For a person to be brave enough to do that and move or migrate to America, that should let you know the conditioning and the mind and the hustle mindset that such a person has. You know that you cannot fail. A lot of Africans, when we come to America, we know that we have to make it, because you cannot go back home and not make it because people will laugh at you. So the hustle mentality that our people have, that a lot of immigrants have when they go to America, is another thing that pushes them to thrive. And sometimes, even when there are some unfavorable conditions, maybe there's some form of racism against them and all of that, they turn a blind eye. They're like, okay, whatever, if I have to just keep quiet, even if they call me the N-word or whatever, I don't mind. I just want to make this money. I want to hustle. I want to provide for my family. I want to send money back home. I want to be able to bring my wife and my kids over here to America. So the hustle mindset is very different. So that definitely counts for another reason why the immigrants come here and they do all they can to succeed, and a lot of them succeed, right? And another thing that counts is the culture of these immigrants when they come. I came across a video by an Indian guy that was talking about how the family system and them marrying people within their culture and having a very strong extended family unit helps them to kind of grow wealth and preserve wealth within the family. And I think one of the guys who stitched today's video said something to that effect. They have extended families that help each other to they get on their feet. They don't have to move out when they're 18. They don't have to pay rent. So you see more people staying together, helping in raising the kids. They don't have to pay for childcare or a nanny or whatever. So they preserve their money more. They have a support system. Their culture allows them to create that very tight family unit that allows them to support each other and thereby helps them build wealth. Right? Same with Africans when they come over here. The Africans will rally around each other and help each other get jobs and all of that, try to find your way around and things like that. So that support system is very strong because we already know that we have to make it regardless. So these immigrants are very likely going to stick to their kind and help propel each other and build this wealth. But the most important thing, the most important factor that this guy refused to acknowledge is the systemic racism. It is already known that there's a whole model minority rhetoric that is being pushed where white people, in order to oppress black people further, were encouraging people of other races, other immigrants to come into America and take the jobs that black people were refusing to take because they were not going to be paid as well as they wanted to. I remember making this video and that lady said the same thing. She talked about how Asians were being given loans and all of that to open businesses in black communities. So at the end of the day, you you find out that the Asian businesses are thriving in the black community, and it's happening at the expense of the black business owners. So when these minority groups are also being used knowingly or unknowingly to oppress black people, what do you think happens? So definitely there will be some immigrants that think the way this guy said in that video, but a lot of people whose eyes have been opened to the reality of living in America know that it is not really the fault of the black people. I think the whole video that guy made was just tone deaf, and it's so shameful that a member of the black community will come out to shame his people like that on a public platform, as if he's not aware of the history or what is happening in America. Anyways, I want you guys to let me know what you think in the comment section. What do you guys think are the advantages immigrants have over black people when they come to America? The next question that I want to ask is, do black people in America think that there are some things they could adopt from the way the immigrants operate that makes them successful? Is there anything the immigrants are doing that black people in America possibly begin to do more of to ensure that they succeed more and build more wealth in the black American community? Or are we of the school of thought that no matter what the black people try to do, the system is going to keep them down, and then immigrants will probably always do better because these systems are not designed to hold immigrants back? I want to know your thoughts on that. And responding to what he said, do you guys think immigrants generally mock black Americans because of the economic situation they face and all of that? Please let me know in the comment section, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.